In doing the story earlier about USS Harry S. Truman losing the F-18 sliding off her deck, I pulled up a map of the United States Navy fleet deployments, and I was aware of another deployment by China, and this map caught my attention. You can see Nimitz Carrier Strike Group there, just east of the Philippines. Well, I became aware, because I've been watching other operations in the area, that the Chinese had deployed their aircraft carrier Shandong near the Philippines. Where did they deploy it? Right by Carrier Group Nimitz. This is a map showing the deployment of Nimitz Carrier Strike Group and the Shandong Carrier Strike Group, both east of the Philippines, in relative close proximity to each other. This is very interesting. Very interesting. The Chinese deployed their aircraft carrier in response to the United States deployment of elements of the Littoral Combat Regiment stationed in Japan to the exercise conducted with the Philippines. The United States deployed anti-ship missiles on a strategic Philippine island during a drill while a Chinese aircraft carrier staged a show of force against the Allies in nearby waters. This goes into the story. This is from Newsweek, and it talks about the exercise itself, called Balikan 2025 on Bataan Island in the northern Philippines. This shows one of the naval strike missiles in its ground-based launcher with a range of 115 miles. And this is the current map. 1, 2, 3. You can clearly see the track, and I do believe that this was as it was returning to port. It could have been around the arrival time of Carrier Strike Group Nimitz. But what else is relevant here, as they pass through the Luzon Strait, with the naval strike missile carried by those Marines, is also that just last week, and possibly yesterday too, there was a Indian military cargo aircraft that was landing in the Philippines yesterday. I was tracking that along with the movements on the Indian-Pakistan border. Philippines deploys second BrahMos battery, a supersonic warning shot to Beijing. The BrahMos anti-ship missile is a supersonic anti-ship missile, one of the most capable in the world. It flies at a speed of Mach 2.8, and it's a sea-skimming missile, and then it does its pop-up maneuver before it comes down at Mach 2.8. It has a range of approximately 300 kilometers, and as you look at this map one more time of the Luzon Strait, this is the Philippines down here. Let's just pull this out a little bit. This is the Philippines. Now picture them with their 300-kilometer missile. U.S. Navy with its 115-mile missile. And you can see the sealing of the southern Luzon Strait would be complete. Now, obviously, China would have a response for that. They wouldn't just allow that to be closed like that in a wartime situation. And those Marines would have hundreds of short-range ballistic missiles landing on their heads, as well as fighter and bomber sorties. Same with the Philippines. They just recently had a large incident with one of the Chinese Coast Guard vessels, and the Chinese just recently claimed an atoll in the region that's been claimed by both. But as you can see, the response by the Chinese with their carriers going out, their carrier strike group going out to meet the operation, to basically send a message themselves that they're gonna do what they're gonna do in the Luzon Strait. So we'll see. This is the story about China, Tuan. Let me translate this to English. Defense Security Asia is a good site, but it is an Indonesian site, so a lot of times the articles need to be translated into English. So just how the site is. But if you're going to get your information about places, you've got to be willing to go and search out those places. China captures another coral reef in the South China Sea. It's going to be a military base. Photos released by the Chinese state media show Chinese Coast Guard members on the island. They were dropped off there, and that is a reef in the... trying to remember exactly what region of the Philippines. I wish this story would work properly. Not too surprised. China's Coast Guard authorities have captured another remote and unoccupied coral reef in the South China Sea, while its members seen waving the country's flag on the reef located not far from a Philippine military security checkpoint. Beijing has declared its official sovereignty over the coral reef called Sandy Say. Photos released by China state media showed members of China's Coast Guard flying the country's flag on the coral reef of Sandy Cay, which Beijing calls something else. I'm not even going to butcher that for you guys. This is a map of the approximate location of that island. And as you can see, these are sandbars. Then China goes out there and makes them bigger sandbars. But this is the picture. This is Filipino military on the reef years ago. It's a blot of sand. Chinese Coast Guard vessels which have clashed with Filipino Coast Guard vessels and fishermen many, many times, leading to injuries and the sinking of Filipino vessels. And these are the Chinese on said island. So things continue in the South China Sea. But I found it interesting that the deployment of Carrier Strike Group Nimitz happened to be just right there with Carrier Strike Group Shandong. And this map, I think, says a lot. These two carrier strike groups were definitely within range of one another. I wouldn't be surprised if one saw the other. Very likely the United States aircraft carrier flew reconnaissance and was able to see the Chinese carrier quite well. And so were the Marines as it passed by in the Luzon Strait and said, hello, hey, take a look at our missile launcher here. What do you think? The Filipinos might have said the same thing with their BrahMos. Either way, I just found it interesting. Carrier strike groups deploying so close to one another. You can see why the Chinese probably hightailed it the heck out of there. But we'll see what the future holds. I just wanted to put this together. If you liked it, hit like, subscribe, share it with a friend, let them know that U.S. and China's aircraft carriers, they were pretty close. And the Marines waved to them as they went by.